So I have shared it. You can begin now, Dr. Charles, if you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see it, but you have to put it in slideshow. Yes. So you need to ask the participants whether they have seen it before I formally start up.
Yes, we can see it, sir.
We can see it.
We can
We can see it, sir.
We can see it too. We can see
see
it. So start, please.
We can see it.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. I'm sorry for the delay. That's a technology issue. My system was not able to connect. For the past 30 minutes, I've been trying. So, but the phone's connected. System to see what the issue is. But thank God we have a solution now. I believe that the organizers must have introduced me.
Recording in progress.
And I want to still appreciate everyone that is attending this webinar. I promise you I will not waste a whole lot of your time. This is supposed to be from 7 to 9. And I will try as much as possible to make sure I do not exceed so much on the time that we have already scheduled. So my name is Chiaka Charles Nkwala. I'm a lecturer at Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, Umudike. I'm a community nutritionist by specialty. And I was very much happy when the topic on WHO Anthro was actually given that I should run a section on it, because it has been one software that I have been using for a very long time. So we are going to look at the WHO Anthro and Anthroplus for nutritional assessment. And today we are going to look at the section 1. Now, we are going to look at the background, the concept and the models for nutritional assessment as a general introduction to WHO Anthro and Anthroplus. It's quite important that we understand this background. Now, I know that many people will be that they want to learn how to use the software, but it's not just about learning how to use the software. If you do not understand what led to the software being developed, you cannot use the software effectively. And you cannot also add or contribute to its improvement. That is the reason why this first section, we are going to dedicate it to the background, the theoretical aspect of what led to the WHO Anthro being developed. So the next slide. So we are going to look at the introduction. First, what are we talking about? We are looking at WHO Anthro and WHO Anthroplus. And these two are computer applications. They are softwares that facilitates the assessment and analysis of anthropometric data for individual, a child, and as a general for a population in a survey. And this is done with respect to the WHO, which is World Health Organization standard and reference. Now, if you observe, there are keywords that I used green to mark. Those keywords are essential. that what we are talking about here is a computer software. And this software is essentially for anthropometric data. And there are standards and reference upon which this data is analyzed. So this software enables monitoring growth in individuals and populations of children from birth to 19 years of age. So we have the two softwares doing the same thing, but for different age groups. So the WHO Anthro is for the assessment of anthropometric status and monitoring of growth for children 0 to 59 months. At 60 months is when they are 5 years. So for Anthro, it monitors children, it assesses children, anthropometric assessment for 0 to 59 months. And it uses the WHO Child Growth Standard as a standard for comparison. We are going to look at these key concepts when we get to the concept stage. Now, the second software is the WHO Anthroplus. Now, it's the same as the WHO Anthro. It's just that it is used to assess the anthropometric status and monitor the growth of school-age children and adolescents 5 years to 19 years. So at 60 months, the child is 5 years. Then it runs through 19 years. And it uses the WHO reference. Now, check this difference. The Anthro uses WHO Child Growth Standard, which was developed in 2006. While the Anthroplus uses the WHO reference, which was developed in 2007. So mark these key differences in these two softwares and on the database upon which they are working on. So the Anthro is working on the WHO Growth Standard database as a standard for comparison, while WHO Anthroplus is working on WHO Growth Reference, which is for children 5 to 19 years. Now, for the WHO Anthroplus, it still allows you to import data from your WHO Anthro and to continue monitoring the child or the children that you are assessing. So it's something that the Anthroplus was built on the foundation of the WHO Anthro. So let's go to the next slide. So we are now going to look at the background. So we have introduced what we are going to work on, the WHO Anthro and the Anthroplus. They are softwares, they are computer software, just like any other software that you use. And they are for different age groups. The Anthro, 0 to 59 months, and then the Anthroplus, 5 years to 19 years. Now, how did the WHO Anthro come about? And why was there a standard for it? Now, I'm going to take you through on a journey of the beginning of the argument to the end of what was now developed from an argument. In 1990, the World Health Organization constituted a working group on infant growth to develop recommendations for appropriate uses and interpretation of anthropometry in infants and young children. Now, before now, there has been an issue with the standard that was being used. Many of us that started in nutrition some years back, before 2005 or 2006, we are used to the NCHS standard. There was no WHO standard then. It was NCHS standard. And that standard was a standard from United States, a study that was conducted in the United States on how children are growing. So some group of scientists started asking the questions, this standard, is it actually reflecting the appropriate growth pattern of children or how children should grow? And that now led to this working group being constituted to evaluate that question. And there was also a question on, can we use children in the United States to set a standard for comparing children in Africa? Those questions came up. Those in Asia, we are still asking the same questions. Why are we using standard for United States to set up for Asia, for Africa, for all over the world? And that now led to them constituting this working group. So the working group started, and in 1994, they sent out a report that the internationally used National Center for Health Statistics, NCHS / WHO International Reference, was flawed and failed to depict physiologic growth adequately. And based on this, there was now a sufficient evidence to show that the assessment of children using that standard is not adequate or is not right. So the working group reviewed the limitations of the existing international reference and concluded that child growth standards, rather than a reference, were necessary. So in essence, they recommended that for children, there should be a standard for them and not using a reference for their assessment. And that now led to another set of survey to capture this standard. Next slide. So the study actually led to them constituting the WHO multi-center growth reference to assess children and then come up with a standard. And the recommendation of this working group is that the standard that should be developed should describe how infants and young children should grow in all settings, rather than how they do grow in a specific setting and time. It should also reflect normal growth under optimal environmental, behavioral, and health conditions, such as predominantly breastfeeding for at least 4 months. So these were the recommendations of this working group, that this standard must set breastfeeding as a norm to feeding children rather than infant formula. So the study used to create these standards was now called the WHO Multi-Center Growth Reference Study. So it was on this study that the growth standard we are now developed. So consequently, the WHO Multi-Center Growth Reference Study was implemented to provide data to construct growth curves from birth to 5 years of age. And you can get that from this reference, the ONIS. Most of the publications by the ONIS in 2024, 2025 were basically on growth standard. And you can get more information from there. Next slide. Now, the WHO MGRS aim to generate new growth charts for assessing the growth of infants and young children worldwide. Mark it, worldwide. No more for United States alone, or no more for children that are growing in United States. So it's worldwide. So that study was actually conducted from 1997 to 2003. And it included 6 countries. 6 countries participated in the study. And these 6 countries reflected a generality of the world. So we have children from Brazil included in the study, South America, children from Ghana, Accra, Ghana, were used to represent Africa. Children from India were used to represent Asia. Children from Norway, Oman, and United States were also used to represent different continents in that region. So you see that the whole continent, or a generality of the world, were sampled for this study. So the pooled sample from the 6 countries allowed the development of a truly international standard, reiterating the fact that children grow similarly when their health and care needs are met. One interesting thing that came from this study is that if a child in Nigeria is fed optimally with the recommended feeding practice, the child has the potential to grow as tall and as healthy as a child that is in the United States. And this debunks so much of our overemphasis on gene being a major component of our anthropometry. Gene has a role to play, yes, but nutrition expresses the gene. So every child in the world has the potential to grow to the same optimal growth level if given the right condition. And this study proved it. The pool sample from
Yes, we can't hear.
Yes, apologies, everyone. I think Dr. Charles is having a network constraints. Let's hope to have him back on soon.
Good evening. Please, I want to.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes, please,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
We can hear you now.
Sorry, it's actually rained here this evening, so I expected there will be quite some fluctuations. I'm connected with 3 devices, trying to just show myself. I'm connected with 3 devices, trying to just show myself.
Recording in progress.
I'm connected.
Recording.
Yeah, you may need to reduce the audio of the other devices you are connected with, Dr. Charles, so that they don't.
Yes, it's echoing. I'm trying to. Yeah, I think I've sorted it out. Why I connect so that if this one drops, I can enter in the other one, but 3 of them dropped at the same time. Okay, so sorry for that. That's quite a challenging thing. So, like I was saying, that they go to the other slide. I think I was in the other slide. Yes, that's where I am. So, like I was saying, that a major issue of a major outcome of this survey was that the breastfeeding was made the biological norm. So what this standard, if you are using WHO standard, what is essentially telling you is that you're comparing a child with children that were breastfed, because the standard was that children that were used to develop the curve and the standard were children that were breastfed. And the conditions for selecting these countries was stringent. When you read the document on the development, you will get to learn more on the conditions, why Ghana met the condition for Africa and Nigeria didn't meet it. So next slide. Now, the infants used for the study followed international infant feeding recommendations. And these were the recommendations that were done. 1, they were predominantly breastfed for at least 4 months. 2, they were introduced to complementary foods by at least 6 months, but not before 4 months. Then they continued breastfeeding for at least 12 months. No upper limit on breastfeeding duration. So many of them breastfed for 2 years, some beyond. So these were the conditions that any country that will be part of this study must be able to follow these children rigorously, religiously, to meet this condition. There are other conditions also, that the mother did not smoke during pregnancy and other things. So you can get a detailed description of how the MGRS was implemented and how the WHO growth standards were constructed at these references. If you just type it in Google, you will get the documents and you can read it and appreciate the process that was taken to develop the WHO growth standard for children 0 to 59 months, and then for the reference. Now let's look at the reference. Let's go to the next slide. So the wealth of data collected allowed the replacement of the NCHS standard for the different indicators. 2, it also allowed for the development of new standards for body mass index for age, hair circumference for age, arm circumference for age, tricep skin fold for age, and subscapular skin fold for age. Now, let me make an emphasis here. Before the development of this WHO standard, there was no assessment for childhood obesity. At that time, so many people believe that a child cannot be obese. But with the survey and the development of the standards and the curves, it was now obvious that children can be obese. So they needed to set a standard for that. And that standard was set using BMI for age. BMI for age. So it's not the same BMI that we use for adults. It is BMI for age that is used for children and adolescents. So we have to get that clear, because I've seen so many people that end up using the BMI classification for adults and they apply it to children. No, it's wrong. So the WHO Anthro and the Anthroplus analyze data and give you the result for the BMI for age, Z-scores, and the rest of them. So these new standards were actually developed because of the data that we are collected during the survey. Now, another key thing about the outcome of the survey was that the data collected helped in the inclusion of windows of achievement for 6 gross motor development milestones. So if we get to WHO Anthro, you will see the 6 gross motor development milestones that can be assessed using the software. And these development milestones provide a unique link between a child's physical growth and the child's cognitive development, that is the motor development. So you now find out that the new WHO standard was more robust, and the data that was that were generated helped in expanding the area that assessments can be done. So it's very much important for us to understand this key background on how the WHO Anthro and the standards came to be. Let's move on. So the WHO Anthro and the WHO Anthro software were developed to facilitate the application of the WHO Child Growth Standard and WHO reference, and monitor the growth of children 0 to 59 months and school-age children and adolescents 5 to 19 years, respectively. So what it means is that after developing the standard, because by 2005, 2006, computer utilization was now at the peak. So everybody now had to link whatever they are doing to the computer. So that software was developed as an outcome of the standard that was developed from the survey. Now, in the Anthroplus software, 3 of the child growth standards are included. That is the weight for age, length or height for age, and BMI for age. These 3 are the same indicators for which the WHO reference has been developed, enabling continuity in growth monitoring throughout childhood and adolescence. The WHO Anthroplus software and the WHO Anthro software, both of them, is meant to be applied by a wide range of users, including people with limited software handling knowledge. So it's quite easy for anybody to use the 2 software and do the assessment. So we have seen the background, that how the standard came to be, and then why the software we are now developed. Let's now move to the next stage. Now, after observing or going through the background, you observe that there are some terms I highlighted in different colors. Those terms are key concepts in the use of the software. Without understanding the key concepts, it will be difficult for us to analyze and interpret data using the WHO Anthro. It will be quite difficult for us to do that. So that's the reason why we need to go through some basic concepts. They are not much, but some basic concepts, so that we will appreciate these concepts and use them in the right way. It's very much important that we do that. Now, what's the first concept we are going to look at? The first concept is WHO Child Growth Standards. We have talked about this, but we are now looking at it as a concept on its own. Growth standards, that's the WHO growth standards, identify or describe how children should grow. Mark the key word there, should grow, when provided optimal conditions in all settings. So whether you are in Africa, or you are in Asia, or you are in Australia, or you are in United States, how a child should grow, irrespective of your setting. The WHO growth charts are also standards, because those growth charts were developed to give a guide on how a child is growing or how a child should grow, so that you can compare how a particular child is growing with respect to how he or she should grow. Now, the WHO standards are based on a high quality study designed explicitly for creating growth standards. And we have seen the rigorous process the survey went through to get these standards. So the WHO standard how children should grow, not how children are growing. Now, let's get to the next concept. The next
Apologies, everyone. I think the facilitator, Dr. Charles, is out again, but I'm certain he will join us back in a couple of seconds. Thank you for your patience. Dr. Charles, can you hear us? You're on the call. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me? I can hear you.
Okay, yes, sir. Yes, I can. Thank
Yeah,
you.
okay. Sorry, please go to the upper slide. Yes, sorry, is I keep on dropping and coming out. Yeah. So the next concept we are going to, okay, the next concept we are going to look at will be the WHO growth reference. So the growth reference describes how children grow in a specific setting and time. So take it back to compare it with the other concept, the growth standard. So the growth standard shows how or indicates how children should grow, while the reference shows how children grow in a specific setting. So when we were using NCHS standard, what we were essentially doing was checking how children in United States were growing. So we are comparing our own children here in Nigeria with how the children in United States were growing. So, but the standard that WHO now developed showed how the child should grow, no more a reference. Now, the reference can be applied to other children outside the reference population. So that is the reason why in Africa we are able to use the NCHS reference. So the WHO reference of 2027 was not developed from the survey. It was actually a reconstruction of the 1977 National Center for Health Statistics, NCHS WHO reference. It uses the original NCHS data set supplemented with data from the WHO Child Growth Standards sample for under 5s. So to develop this reference, the same statistical methodology was used as in the construction of the WHO standard. And this reference complements the WHO Child Growth Standards. So what are we saying in essence? That the WHO reference, which we use for children and adolescents 5 years to 19 years, not for children 0 to 5 years or 0 to 59 months, mark the difference. So the reference is used for school-age children and adolescents 5 to 19 years because it was not logical conducting a survey to do a standard for them. So, and because the children that were used in the NCHS standard were not obese, and they have gone through the stage of that growth from 0 to 59 months. So it was now thought wise that let them use the same data set, but use the same methodology that was used for the standard in developing a modified reference. Now, the WHO reference was developed in 2007. Remember, the WHO standard was developed in 2006. So after the development of the WHO standard, there was now a reconstruction of the data of the NCHS to develop the WHO reference in 2027. And it provides a smooth transition from the child growth standards for 0 to 5 years to the older age group. And that is the reason why they had to use the same statistical method they used for the development of the standard and now linked it. So there was a seamless chart, there was a seamless pattern that from 0 to 59 months, the child can still be monitored at 5 years to 19 years using the reference, the WHO reference. So it's important that we know the difference between these two concepts. I believe that some people have been using these terminologies quite interchangeably, and some use it in combination, reference standard. In children, for WHO, reference is different from their growth standard. So we have to get that clearly. So let's get to the next concept. So the next concept I want us to look at is the anthropometric blocks for children. Now, the anthropometry of children is quite sensitive, more sensitive than the anthropometry for adults. And that is the reason why it's very much important that anybody that wants to run anthropometry for children should do it well. If not, there will be issues with the results. Now, the anthropometric blocks for children are essentially 4. We have 4 basic anthropometric blocks for children. And these blocks, what it means is that without getting a measurement of any of these blocks, it's quite difficult to run a comprehensive anthropometric status of these children. So the first block is age. And the units I put in here is to show you the unit that the WHO Anthro software recognizes. Both Anthroplus and WHO Anthro, the units they recognize. So for age in children, the unit they recognize is age in months. Though you can have age in days, age in years, but when you're imputing in WHO Anthro software, any of the software, you will put that in, it comes up in age, in months. The age comes up in months. Then the second anthropometric block is sex. And the sex of the child is captured in the software as male 1. The code for male is 1, and the code for female is 2. So it's important that we understand this basic concept, because by the time we want to import data from, let's say, Excel into WHO Anthro, if the codes are wrong, then the interpretation and the analysis will be wrong. So that's why it's quite important that we understand this concept. So sex in 1, male, 2, female. Now, let me still point something out in age. If you are running a study and you want to assess the nutritional status of children from 0 to 59 months, you cannot do that by getting children's age in categories, 0 to 5 months, 6 to 10 months. No, you must get the exact age in months. So it must be a ratio variable rather than an ordinal or a nominal scale variable. So when I see some people bring questionnaire and they want to assess, one of the objectives is to assess the nutritional status of children, and they have age in categories, I always tell them you cannot calculate this because the WHO Anthro will require the date of birth and the date of interview or the date of assessment to be able to calculate the exact age in months. If you calculated the exact age in months, you can still import it or feed it into the software. But if they are in categories, forget it. You cannot run anthropometric assessment. Now, the third block, anthropometric block, is the weight. The weight of the child should be recorded in kilogram, not in gram, in kilogram. Even if you recorded in gram, you must convert to kilogram before you can feed it into WHO Anthro software. The last of the building block is the length or height. I know that we know the difference, that length is when you are assessing a child that is below 2 years and that cannot stand erect. And height is when you're assessing a child that can stand erect or children above 2 years. There is a conversion factor to this. If you are supposed to assess the length of a child and you assess it at height, you must use the conversion factor. If you are to assess the height of a child and you did the length, you must apply the conversion factor. And you can get all this information from the anthropometric growth handbook or model from WHO. So these are essentially 4 building blocks, and the length and height or weight, or the length or the height, must be in cm. Now let me share a little experience of what I have seen in several studies. Now, some people go to field using the Taylor's tape. You know, the Taylor's tape, they use it to construct an improvised heightometer. Now, by the time they go to the field, sometimes the people they call for assistance may not know that the tape has 2 sides, the inches and the cm. So I have gotten a work from someone, and while we are analyzing it, we saw that the WHO software rejected the data and was showing it as NA. So what was actually the problem? Because when I now went back and checked, the people that we are recording height or length for the research, we are interchanging inches with cm. So in some of the children, they recorded in inches. In some of the children, they recorded in cm. And some people will even record in meters. So you now, when you see it, you see that, oh, some of the things we take for granted, we shouldn't take for granted, because they are very important concepts while handling children and assessing their nutritional status. So the recommended units for measuring length or height for children is cm, centimeters. And that is the unit that the software accepts. So we must understand that basic concept. Now, let's go to the next concept. Anthropometric assessment and status of children. Now, I always ask people, what's the difference between assessment and status and measurement? So some don't really get it rightly. Now, this is where we need to now get a little bit conscious why we are trying to assess the nutritional status of children. Anthropometric assessment is an objective assessment tool which involves 1, measurement. So anthropometric assessment involves measurement of body dimensions, that's the anthropometry, and composition to evaluate nutritional status and growth. So I have highlighted two words there, measurement and status. So when you are talking about anthropometric assessment, first there will be anthropometric measurement. And you now go back to the building blocks that we have highlighted. That the measurement is getting the data for those building blocks. So you are getting the age of the child. That's you are getting the sex of the child. You are getting the weight of the child. You're getting the height or length of the child. That is within the realm of measurement. Now, the second now is that you are going to compare the measurements you obtained with the growth standard or the reference. By the time you compare the two, the measurement and the growth standard or reference, you will now come up with the status of the child, the anthropometric status. So what it means is that if you do not have any measurement of a child, you cannot assess the status of the child. If you do not have a standard on which you are comparing the measurement, you cannot have a status. So what you just have is a measurement. So you can measure the height of the child. Like say, oh, this child is 90 cm. Fine, that's the height of the child. But that is not the status of the child. So the status of the child is when you compare this child of this age, 2 years, 90 cm, you now compare it with the standard. How should a child of 2 years grow? What should be the height of a child of 2 years that is normal? It is based on that you will now come, oh, this child is stunted or this child is not stunted, which is the status of the child. So that is essentially how it works. That the anthropometric measurement, compare it with the growth standard or reference for you to come up with a standard or with a status. Now, this simple diagram, these three simple diagrams I made here is essentially what the WHO Anthro software does. Unfortunately, the software will not get the measurement for you. No, you do that. And that's why they always say the computer is garbage in, garbage out. If you do a wrong measurement and send it to the computer, to the software will give you the right status of a wrong measurement. What do I mean by that? The software will give you the answer based on the measurements you've given to it. Garbage in, garbage out. So it's very much important that we learn the skills of taking anthropometric measurements. And those skills are very important skills for every nutritionist. Now, once you have gotten your measurements, you went to the field or the child came to your clinic and you got the measurement. You now put that measurement inside the WHO Anthro software. The software already has the standard, the WHO growth standard and reference in its database. So it will automatically compare the measurement you've given with the standard that is already in its database. And now we bring the output of the child's anthropometric status. So what the system did is just do a fast comparison and bring out the status of the child that you can now interpret. So by the time we see the software, how it displays, then we will appreciate that in a split second, it will do what you cannot do in 1 month. That is the beauty of the WHO Anthro software. So this is important. The anthropometric measurement is compared with a growth standard or reference to give you the anthropometric status. The computer or WHO Anthro will not do the measurement for you. You have to do the measurement and feed in the measurement values you obtained. The system will compare with its database and then will give you the output, which you see as the status. So let's go to the next concept. So the next concept is the anthropometric indicators, which we call the indices. So these indicators are the status. They indicate the status that the system brings out, or the status of the child. So the 4 basic indicators for WHO child growth standard 0 to 59 months is 1, weight for length or weight for height, weight for age, length or height for age, and BMI for age. These are the 4 indicators, the basic indicators. And WHO calls them the fundamental indicators of anthropometric status of children, or anthropometric assessment of children. Now, for the Anthroplus, there are 3 standards that you are going to, or 3 indicators that you are going to see. And they are based on WHO growth reference, 5 to 19 years. So 1 is height for age. Height for age is used in assessing children 5 to 19 years. The second one is weight for age. It is used to assess children 5 to 10 years. And the third one is BMI for age. It's used to assess children 5 to 19 years. So we can see that there is a difference in the indicators that we see when using WHO Anthro, and the indicators we will see when using WHO Anthroplus. So for the growth standard, 0 to 59 months, you use Anthro, and 5 to 19 years, you use Anthroplus. Now, because of the robust and extensive data generated from the WHO survey, the multi-center survey, other indicators were established. And these indicators include head circumference for age, mid-upper arm circumference for age. And then we have the tricep skin fold for age, and we have the subscapular skin fold for age. So this is MUAC. Please, I will correct it. The other U is C, MUAC, not MUAU. Maybe I was trying to write MUAU. So it's MUAC, mid upper arm circumference for age. So these are other indicators that WHO established, but they are not the fundamental indicators. The fundamental indicators are the ones that we have presented above. So it's quite important that before we start using the WHO softwares, we need to know this concept so that when we see it, we can interpret better. So let's go to the next. Yes, the next concept that I want us to appreciate is the Z-scores and the percentiles. Now, in a simple term, Z-scores and percentiles are values that indicate the extent points to which a child's measurements are lower or above the WHO growth standard or reference, depending on the one you are using. If you have a positive sign for Z-score, it shows that the child is above the standard. Why, if you have a negative score for Z-score, it shows that the child is below the standard. So the extent to which the negative value applies shows the extent. So for instance, if a child Z-score comes up to be -2 standard deviation, what it means is that this child is 2 points below the standard. So the child is 2 points below, or the child is 2 points deviating from the standard. So if it is negative, if you have a +2, +2, what it shows is that the child is 2 points above the standard. So if a child is -3, what it shows is that, let's say for instance, height for age, and you get a Z-score of -3. What it shows that this child is 3 points below the standard for the child's height for that age. And that's where we now say the child is severely stunted. So we need to understand this concept. Now, the default classification system used to present child's nutritional status in WHO software is the Z-score, or the standard deviation scores. Now, why is the Z-score preferred? Is because of its capability to describe nutritional status, including at the extreme ends of the distribution, and allow deviation of summary statistics, which means that with this score, you can run robust statistical analysis as compared to the percentile. So the WHO recommends that we present our results in Z-scores rather than percentile. Because if you present your results in Z-scores, it can be applied in any statistical analysis. You can get the mean Z-score and the rest of them, but you cannot get that when you use percentile. So it's quite important. But the WHO softwares, the WHO software assesses using both the Z-score and the percentile. But when you want to now do more statistical analysis, it's recommended that you use the Z-score. That is WHO's recommendation. So it's quite necessary that we align ourselves to that. So looking at that picture, you see the line where we wrote the WHO standard, and you see the children falling below. Some are a little bit close to the standard. Some are very much below the standard. But there is something you must know, that all these children must be of the same age. So for you to compare them, they must be of the same age, because there is different standard for different age and for different sex. So that is a summary of what the Z-score and percentile represents. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, we have finished the concepts. So we have taken our time from the background, or first we introduce what we want to learn. That is the WHO Anthro software and the WHO Anthroplus software. We introduced it, that these are computer software. Then we went to the background. How did they come about? And we now observed, or we saw, that they are coming about is because of a standard, a new standard that was developed to replace an old standard. And by the time the standard was developed, it was not necessary that a software be developed to help in its calculation or its analysis. And then we are now looked at the concepts that there are, before you can use this software and interpret them effectively, there are basic concepts that you need to understand about anthropometric assessment. And we went through the concepts. Right now, we are at the point of looking at the software itself. So the WHO software, the WHO Anthro and the Anthroplus, they have the same model, and they have 3 different models. So the first model they have is called the anthropometric calculator. So from the screen there, you will see that the 2 softwares are similar. They have the same outlook, they have the same functions, but they are quite different in their version. So if you look at the WHO Anthro, can somebody tell me the version? I want now somebody to speak up. Can somebody tell me the version of WHO Anthro? Is it possible for them to talk?
Yes, sir. Please, if you want to answer, you can unmute your mic. Thank you. Sir,
Okay.
we have some
Yes,
responses here.
Yeah, Ruth has said it's 3.2.2. Yes, that's right. So you see that for it to be 3 points, that means that there were previous versions that were developed. So when you are installing this software, make sure that you use the recent version. Now, can somebody indicate the version for the Anthroplus? Can somebody indicate the version for the Anthroplus? Yes. Version 1.04. You've got it. So you now see that the Anthro have had several versions before the Anthro Plus. So version 3.2.2 for the WHO Anthro and version 1.0.4 for the Anthro Plus. So it's quite important that you know this version, so that you don't open one software when you are trying to use the other one. So the 2 softwares have the same model. So the first model is the anthropometric calculator in both software. The second model is individual assessment, and the third model is nutritional survey. So I'm going to run us through the 3 different models before our time gets up. So the first one is the anthropometric calculator, AC. Now, this model, in a simple term, assesses one child at a time. So it assesses one child at a time. It's like a calculator to use to know the anthropometric status of a child at one time. So this model facilitates deriving nutritional status results for an individual child or adolescent based on the software you are using. Based on the WHO standards or WHO reference, depending on his or her age for the indicators that you are trying to assess. So that is the first model that we have. Now let's go to the second model. Next slide. Yeah, the second model is the individual assessment. Now, this model, in a simple term, assesses a child several times. So a particular child can be assessed several times. So it's always used when when a child is coming for routine monitoring, growth monitoring. So you use this software, this model, to assess the child. So this model enables the user to collect and save data for children who are repeatedly examined. So the child's nutritional status can be derived and also graphically displayed based on the WHO standards or reference and on the indicators. So this function helps to visualize trends in child growth, and then we start monitoring the child growth pattern or trajectory. So you cannot use the anthropometric calculator to know a child's growth pattern, but you can use this individual assessment to assess a child's growth pattern or child's growth trajectory or the trend in a child. So and it can also show you graphically the anthropometric status of the child at a single visit or multiple visits. We are going to see all this when we do the hands-on in the training. Now let's get to the third model. So the third model is the nutritional survey. Now, in a simple term, this model enables the user to collect and save data for several children, assessed only once at a time. So you are, like the name applies, the way we conduct our nutritional survey, where you go to a community, you sample children, you take their measurements, and you see that there are several children that you took the measurement at a particular time. So this is what this model helps us to do. It helps us to analyze the nutritional status of the children as an individual or as a group. And you can also get graphical representation of the WHO standards or are using Z-scores as an individual or as a group. So as a group, you will now see the normal distribution curve, and you now compare it with what you have in that population or in the location that you assessed. So it can be used to determine the prevalence of malnutrition in the sampled location. So that's what this nutritional survey helps us to do. So you'll see that the three models have their different functions and have different objectives and essentially have different results they give to us, and the interpretation of the results will also be based on the different model that we use. So we are going to have a little hands-on. Unfortunately, next slide. Unfortunately, I've been trying to connect with my system, and it's been giving me a whole lot of challenge. Let me say try one more time. Let me change let me change my data for the system. So while we are waiting for that, this is simply the background or the introduction I wanted to present for this section 1. In the second section, which we are going to have tomorrow, I pray that the network will not be as challenging as it is. We are going to run some assessments using the different model. And when we do that, you will now start appreciating the power of the two software that we are presenting today. So while I'm still trying to see how I can get the system on, I would like to entertain some contributions, some comments, some questions so that we'll use that to keep on while I try to connect, so as to show us one or two things. We are not doing any practical session today, but I just wanted to open the software so that we'll appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Over. Okay, somebody asked the question, what is the difference between the two software? So like I stated, the WHO Anthro is used to assess the anthropometric status of children 0 to 59 months. 0 to 59 months. Why the WHO Anthroplus is used to assess the anthropometric status of school children and adolescents from 5 years to 19 years. So that is essentially the difference. So that's for that. I would like to, yeah. So if you can be bringing in some of the questions they are asking, so that I can, is going up. So let me check.
All right. Thank you, sir, for this wonderful presentation. So while we wait for you to connect your system, I will read out some questions. So for those of us on YouTube as well, please drop your questions on the comment section and we will attend to them. I'll read it out for him to attend to. So please drop your those on Zoom, please drop your questions. And if you'd like to ask a question as well, if you don't want to type it, you can raise your hand. Then if when you're called upon, you can then ask your question. Okay, we are getting a lot of good feedbacks. Thank you, thank you. All right. So please, so we are waiting for your questions. If you have anyone, please raise your hand and we'll call on you and you can ask your question. So also check the YouTube as well. For those of us on YouTube, kindly drop your questions on the chat box so that we can attend to them too. Okay, so someone is asking how they can get the software. Well, the software is on Google. So Dr. Charles, to provide more insights on that, he's trying to switch. Sir, can you hear us? Okay, so he's trying to log in and he will answer that question soon.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, yes, we can hear you, sir. You can go ahead.
So I said that the software is on on Google. So if you type WHO Anthro software in Google, it will bring so many sites that you click and then you look for the .execute file. So it's the .execute file that you click and you see where it says download. So you download it. It's not a very heavy software, so you can easily install the software and use it. So it's not a very difficult software. So when you install it, it's going to come up on your screen, and then you will now click on it to open. So you just go to Google, and I would like everyone to do that before our next class. That's tomorrow. So everyone should install it before the next class. So what's the other question?
Okay, and the link to download it is also on the group, on the chat box right now. So you can check the chat and you will see the link to download it. So check the chat box.
But I don't like giving people the link because it limits their ability to explore. So what I always like to do is to ask them to go to the website, because once they get to the website, they can comfortably see other documents there. You will see the manuals there. You will see the manual for the Anthroplus, the manual for the Anthro, and everything. So that's why I always like to keep it open, that they go in there, making this thing so easy. They click, doesn't give them doesn't give them the ability to explore. There are so many other things about WHO Anthro that you need to know, that 2 hours training cannot avail us all the time. But I would like you to go out there and then do some of them. All right. So that's, however, you have put the link, but I always try to tell them to go through the site on their own. So I don't know. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can.
I'm trying to share. Okay, you are seeing my screen, right? So if you are seeing my screen, you will see the WHO Anthro. Now this is my dashboard, my desktop. Can you see my desktop? You are just seeing the Anthro.
Okay, we are just seeing the Anthros.
Okay. So I've opened it and I shared the Anthro. So when you see this, you will see that I'm pointing at the anthropometric calculator now. So the one I opened is WHO Anthro, not the Anthroplus. So you see the anthropometric calculator. So when you click on the anthropometric calculator, it will open. So just take some time on your own. I think it's coming up. I don't know if you have seen yours. Have you seen it open? Has it opened in yours?
Okay, so we'll be checking the chat box for that. So because the demonstration is tomorrow, I don't know how many people that has been able to install it. So if you've been able to install the software, you can indicate so that we'll know how many people that can participate. Okay, so some people are raising their hand.
Okay. So today is not the participation day. I just want them to install it so that by tomorrow, we will now do a hands-on and everybody will be part of it. So I just wanted to open it so that everybody will see how it looks like. So I don't know why it's not showing. Okay, let me share again. Okay. Okay, so this is the WHO anthropometric calculator. So if you click on the anthropometric calculator, it brings out this is the window. So in this window, we are going to explore this window by tomorrow and do 1 or 2 assessments, but at least some of the concepts we have been able to identify, we have gotten it there, and some others we are still going to identify by tomorrow. So that is the window for anthropometric calculator. So I will still open the window for, let me open the window for individual assessments. So I'm trying to connect back.
Okay, sir. So while we are waiting for you to connect, we still have a couple of questions. So for the version,
Okay.
which one are we to install? People are
You are
mentioning
into
that
is
1.0 and 3 and 4.
no, the version you will install for WHO Anthro is version 3.2.2. That's why I asked whether you saw the version. So that's the version for Anthro. Then the version for Anthroplus, there are two different softwares that you can install in your system at the same time. So the version for Anthroplus is 1.0.4. So I don't know if there is any recent updates on the version. I didn't see any, but if there is a recent update, you will see it there because it must be something above what we have now. So Anthro version 3.2.2, Anthro Plus version 1.0.4. Are we there?
Yes, sir. So we'll put it on the chat in the chat box too, so that people can take note of that.
Okay.
So, are you able to share your screen now, or should I go ahead with the questions?
Let's be asking questions.
Okay, so we have a question from someone. It says, what is the status of those data generated before this new WHO standards and references?
Yeah, they are still there. They are still there. Not that those data are wrong or not usable. No, they are still there. If you come across some softwares like Nutrisurvey or ENA in Nutrisurvey, you will see observe that you can choose the reference standard you want. There is NCHS reference standard. There is CDC reference standard. CDC means Center for Disease Control in United States. So there are several reference standards. But why WHO reference standard or reference and standard is unique is that it captures internationally children that are in any location. So that is the reason why we recommend it for us here in Africa. So the other reference standards, other references and standards are still there. They are still there and are used. They are still there and they can be used. And people still use them depending on the work they are trying to do.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you for that. So, okay, we have more. Let me get to them. Okay, so we have a question on YouTube. So the question is, for the WHO Anthro, the age is calibrated in months. Is the WHO Anthroplus also in months? I'm skeptical since we are working with children and adolescents.
No, let's get this thing. The WHO Anthro database is different from the WHO Anthroplus database. So some of the questions you are asking me is what I have reserved to ask you when we start this technical session, and I'll be quite cautious not to answer every question because they will still have an assessment. You know, I will still give an assessment on some of these things. So some of the questions they're asking on this, they will answer it by the time we start the section. So, but then one thing they need to understand is that the two have different database. So, like I stated, WHO Anthro uses the database of WHO Child Growth Standard. While WHO Anthroplus uses the database of WHO Growth Reference. They are two different things. They are two different things.
Okay, okay, sir. So
Yeah.
I hope that is clear. Okay, so we have another question. It says, is MOAC still MOAC? I thought it has been updated to MAC.
Well, in WHO Anthro, the WHO Anthro software, you are going to see it as MUAC, mid upper arm circumference for age. So what we are saying here is what you will see in that software. So when we open the software, you will see the other indicators that have been identified. And even the growth motor milestones, we will still see the window, how it looks like. So let's try to narrow our idea that we are working on WHO Anthro software and Anthroplus software. So I don't know if that captures what's the question.
Okay. We hope that it has. Okay, so another question is it supported on iOS? So can those using MacBook use it too?
Anybody using MacBook should go to the WHO website to check whether they have a version. The version that is there, as of the last time I checked, is for Windows. That's the version that is on WHO website. So, but the person can check whether they have developed the Apple version. And somebody asked about Android. So is this something that you can explore within this night? Know whether they have introduced the Android version of it. Some of these questions I wouldn't want to answer directly. We are in a learning class. I want you to explore. By tomorrow, I will still ask these questions. Some people will not start giving me answers. Some will say, yes, we have installed it in our tablet. And I say, wow, that's good. You have done great. Some will say, oh, we found out that it's only in PC. It has not had anyone with Apple. I say, fine, you really went there. So I am not the type that sits at the class and give everything, sit down and listen. No, we are going to do our own hands-on. So by tomorrow, we will now converge and have more interesting section. So somebody
Okay,
say I already have it on my laptop. Yeah, fine.
Okay, Akuna, please can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Akuna, are you still here? Please unmute yourself and ask your question. All right. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Charles, for the lecture. My question is this: in a clinical setting or in the field, I found out that if you use in assessing, in measuring, doing anthropometric measurement for some patients, you find out that especially for young children, the MUAC reading and that of the Z-score doesn't tally. Sometimes the MUAC will give you 11.5 as SAM, while the Z-score would not be below -3 in the graph. So in such cases, which one should we use, the Z-score or the MUAC to assess the nutritional status of the child, whether it's severe, SAM or MAM? Thank you.
All right, thank you for that question. It's one of the concepts that we are going to see look at tomorrow. There is something that you must understand. A child that is assessed as having, or when the child is presented and you find out that the child has edema, the WHO Anthroplus automatically classifies that child as having severe acute malnutrition. And all the data that you are going to see will be not applicable because it will not go to the extent of assessing the child. Why? Because that child is already malnourished with edema. And there's something that edema will always indicate. Now, why you are having a discrepancy between the MUAC and your Z-score is because the fat that you captured as weight of the child is not really a fat. The child is already malnourished. What you are seeing there is just accumulated fluid that is not really the child's, how would I put it, anthropometric component. Let me put it in that way. So in WHO Anthro, once a child has edema, let me open the anthropometric calculator again so that you will appreciate what I'm saying. So when you see this, I'm trying to open it now. The yes. So yeah, it has come up. I don't know if you have seen it. Can you see it?
Yes, we can, sir.
Yes. So Akona, can you see it? Hello, Akona, can you see it?
Okay, I don't know if she's still on the call.
Okay. So, okay, if she's watching now look at this screen now. You see that there are values in all this. When I click yes for edema, if
Okay,
I click yes,
I was finding it difficult to unmute myself. I can see it.
yes. So when you click no for edema, you see that you have green Z-scores. The values are there. They are active, right? Now, but if you click yes, this network is really dealing with me here. So if you click the edema, that the child has edema, you will automatically see that all the Z-scores will turn blank. So telling you that any child that comes to your clinic or in the field setting and you identify that the child has edema, the child has severe acute malnutrition, and there is nothing further using the Z-score, the child needs rehabilitation. And that's what one of the things that this software helps you to do. So I've called it up again. So you see that you have no here, and when you click yes to edema, everything goes blank except length for age. So anything that has to do with the weight is NA, not accessible. So this may give the disparity between what you are getting as MUAC and what you are getting as the Z-score, because none of the weights will come. But you will now see that your MUAC for age, Z-score is still active, even when the child has edema. So this software took into consideration the situation you described now. So if I say no to edema, the Z-score for the four basic anthropometric indicators will appear, including the MUAC for age. But if I click that the child has edema, the three indicators that has weight as a component will disappear, not applicable, but the MUAC will still be applicable. So that's to give you that you can still use this software in such situations. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir, for that. So we've exceeded our time with over 20 minutes, 23 minutes, which is because of the network issues. So we apologize that we might not be able to take all your questions tonight, but hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to take them. So we'll just take one more question and then we'll call it a night, and tomorrow we will continue. Okay, so the question is that, does it use internet? I think someone has answered that in the chat box. You don't need to be online to answer that. So, sir, there's also a question about how to install it. So I don't know, is there going to be a demonstration?
Yeah, let me answer that. You need internet to install it in your system, but you don't need internet to use it once it is installed. So you need internet to get the software from the system and install, except somebody gave you the .execute version, so you can now install it. So for the installation, it's not a very big deal. I want people to do it themselves this night and install. You click and it takes you to the prompt. For those that couldn't do it this night, tomorrow we'll start up with the installation. But if everyone is able to do it, then we'll move on. So it's a hands-on for you. Find the software, install it, and get ready for tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take one more question from Ubong. Please unmute yourself and ask your question, and after that, I think that will be the end of the session tonight. So Ubong, please, you can ask your question.
Yeah, Dr. Charles, thank you for that wonderful presentation. Please, I want to understand something based on that of edema and the wait for height. But what about in a situation whereby there is no edema and the MWAC is showing SAM, but the wait for height does not indicate SAM? Which one do we go for?
If you have, let's get it rightly on the MWAC you are talking about. Are you talking about the MWAC tape that you use to assess, or that you keep it? No, it's totally different thing, because in this software, it doesn't assess MWAC based on the value, on the measurement. It assess MWAC based on it being an indicator. If you look at my screen, you will see MWAC for age. MWAC for age is different assessment as just the value. Look at the value on top. The value is 15, right?
Okay.
But your Z-score is 0.65. And your Z-score for weight for length is 0.29. You see that they are green. Now, but if in any situation that you are presented with one being green and the other being yellow, you always walk towards the side of caution. Also, depending on the indicator you are trying to assess. Now, BMI for age is not used to assess underweight. Underweight like that. Where weight for age is not used to assess overweight. Okay? So it still goes back why I mentioned these concepts, these indicators. You must understand what the indicators are and what they represent, and then use it for your own context. If you're doing a rapid assessment for people that you want to screen, you definitely use your MWAC tape. And once it goes to the red or yellow, you already identify them as needing attention. But when you are trying to assess a child that is coming to the clinic and you are trying to assess based on a different indicator, let's say that you want to check stunting. If you are trying to assess stunting, MWAC for age doesn't have anything to do with stunting.
Okay.
So each one has what it is measuring. So if you have a child that has a low weight for age or a very high weight for age, let's say that a child has +3 standard deviation weight for age, you cannot say that the child is obese, because weight for age, although it measures underweight, is not used to measure overweight or obesity. You have to go back to the indicator that was developed for that assessment, which is weight for length can be used to measure overweight, and BMI for age was primarily developed to measure childhood obesity. So that's the reason why we must understand the theory behind the indicators. They are very much important so that we will not use the wrong indicator and interpret wrongly. So I don't know if you get my, yes.
Yes, I get your point. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, thank you all for your questions. This session has been very insightful, and thank you, sir, for answering all our questions. We feel like we're in the lecture room, and you've been giving us very good answers and very practical answers. So we are grateful for that. So please, let's all try to install the software tonight or by tomorrow, so that during the evening session, during the next session, we will have the hands-on practice. So thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you again tomorrow by 7 p.m. And we pray that our network is much more better and that it will be a better experience. Thank you, sir, for joining us once again.
Thank you. And once more, I apologize for all the hitches, and we pray tomorrow will be better. Thank you, and good night.
Good night, sir. Have a good night, everyone. So please, for those who missed some of the session, you can go to our YouTube page and watch. So the sessions will be uploaded on our YouTube page, and you can have access to those recordings on YouTube. So have a good night, everyone, and see you tomorrow.